While this week's funeral services for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg are still being finalized, President Trump supporters calling on him to take quick action.
This can only happen in North Carolina.
So chants of "fill that seat" could be heard at a rally over the weekend in North Carolina. What will it take to fill that seat? And does President Trump have enough time to do it before the election?
Yeah, joining us this morning to weigh in on this is CUNY law professor Natalie Gomez. Natalie, thank you so much for being with us. Let's begin because we understand that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish was that she not be replaced until after a new president is installed. Now, it's very important. She didn't say elected. She said installed. Help us understand that.
So there's a difference between, there's a rush at this moment. And first of all, we can't overstate the loss of Justice Ginsburg and her legacy. And so here we are, not even getting over the shock, and we're moving to this question of her replacement. And you're right, it was her fervent wish not to have the replacement until the new president was installed. And that's because we have an election coming up in 40-something days, and there's a rush to confirm or at least to have a hearing on a nominee by then. But there's about 100 or so days out before a new Senate is installed and before Inauguration Day, et cetera. And so she was thinking she wanted to avoid exactly what we're seeing now in terms of a firestorm and a rush to place someone on the court. She was an institutionalist. She really cared about the legitimacy of the court. And this kind of politicization and rush to push a new and confirm a new justice in this way is exactly what she sought to avoid.
Yeah, her legacy is just so profound. Like you said, she's the second woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court. She's one of New York's very own. She was a fierce feminist, had a ton of landmark cases fighting for LGBT rights, women's rights, and so much more. But when you talk about the election, I also want to look past the election, past November, because if President Trump does not win, does he still have the power in that last few months before a new president would be sworn in to actually make that nominee and kind of get them in as well? Or does it have to be before the election?
Right. Remember, he's still the president until the inauguration of the new president, right? And the same thing with the Senate, right? The Senate will be in a lame duck session, even if the Senate is flipped. And so a lot of the speculation and conversation out there is, will they rush to try to, vet, have hearings and confirm a justice before November 3rd, or will they just start the process and are looking at that longer date?
Well, senators did block President Obama's Supreme Court nomination back in 2016 because it was an election year. But yet, a lot of them don't see a problem with President Trump nominating someone prior to this election. So Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez issued this warning. Let's take a listen.
Mitch McConnell, we need to tell him that he is playing with fire. We need to make sure that this vacancy is protected.
Okay, so I guess it really boils down to this. Do the Democrats have enough votes to prevent the nomination?
And don't forget, when President Obama was trying to get Merrick Garland in, that was in early in the year. It was February or March.
We're talking 9 months out.
Yeah. We're talking just a few months out here.
The level of hypocrisy here is breathtaking, number one. The circumstances are so different, too. If you wanted to make the argument that they should wait, right, the Merrick Garland situation, 9 months out, and then there are other differences, right? President Obama was a two-term president, a popular president. He won the popular vote, right? The people had really spoken about this president. We've got a president now who didn't win the popular vote, who was impeached, who has been shown to be a liar. We have a pandemic going on right now. 200,000 Americans have died, right? We have a polarization in the country. We have a justice who was an icon for equal justice and integrity, right? And then we have this 180 by the very same people, by Mitch McConnell and others, on the question of waiting to listen to the American people. It is outrageous.
So, Natalie, do they have the votes? Do Democrats have the votes to do this?
Betty, that is exactly the question. It all comes down to the votes. It comes down to the votes in the Senate, and then it comes down to the votes of the American people. And on the votes in the Senate, you're hearing probably the same kinds of speculation that I am, right? Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are kind of wavering. Other than that, Can they get up to 4? And I think Democrats are really, the persuasive power has to happen now to sort of, call on Republicans to care about the country and the American people over this, what looks like just a bald power grab.
Natalie, we're pretty much out of time here. I just want to ask you one quick question. Is if a new president is sworn in January, do they have the power to add more seats to the Supreme Court? Because that's now being tossed around by some of the Democrats saying, well, we'll just add more seats to kind of equal the balance.
Yes, they do. That's by statute. Article 3 sets forth that you have to establish the Supreme Court and the inferior federal courts, but the number of justices is determined by statute. And it started with the Judiciary Act of 1789 when there were 6. There are 9 now. There was the FDR threat of a court packing back when they were pushing back on the New Deal, and there was a switch in time that saved 9. We could see a very strong reaction if they move forward. It's really, I think, ill-advised of them to push this through.
Yeah, it looks like a bitter battle, though. All right, thank you so much for your time, as always. We always appreciate your insight.
Natalie, I could talk to you all day, every day. I just love talking to you. You're full of knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You, Dan and Betty.
Absolutely.
Bye.